kind of what is the kind of secret to building a team. And this can cover a gamut of different topics. This can be from, how do we hire for various skill sets? How do we upskill? How do we build systems? How do we collaborate with stakeholders? How do we best pass off our design to developers? And so throughout, the next many months, we'll hopefully address all those topics. The first one we will address today will be specifically with upskilling, so improving skills within a design team and how to mentor and coach your team. Give me 1 second, sorry about that. So let's go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, I'm here with Driess. What we're gonna do is just start off with a quick intro. He'll let us know a little bit about himself. We've kind of planned this webinar to more or less go about 40-45 minutes. And then what we'd like for the attendees here is to go ahead and ask any kind of questions at the very end. You can go ahead and upvote them. The questions that we find have kind of resonated with the community, we'll go ahead and ask those at the very end. So we'll try to save about 10 to 15 minutes there. Again, I'm honored and I'm very thankful that you're all here. So I hope you have a great time. I hope we all learned something. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So Driess, obviously, welcome. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day to be here with myself. The first thing I'd like to kind of do is kind of know how you became a designer. How did you get to where you are today? You are the UI design lead at Deloitte Digital in Belgium. And so with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you and let's go ahead and learn your story.
All right. Yeah, excited to be here. Thank you for welcoming me, Colin, and thank you all for joining. So yeah, I'm Driess. I'm like Colin said, I'm a lead UI designer. So yeah, you notice there's no UX in there, but that's just something. That doesn't mean that I don't know UX. It's just something. It's my focus is more on the visual side, on the UI, rather than on UX. Definitely in our team we have like also lead UX designers. So that's how we kind of differentiate ourselves. But obviously also no UX. I think I'm now around a bit more than 8 years at Deloitte Digital. So a lot of people might ask yourself the questions like, okay, Deloitte, that's not really a design company, right? Indeed, but we actually have quite some designers. We do a lot of design projects, digital projects, and we also actually, if you look around the world, we have acquired a lot of design agencies like Heat in the US that you might know, or Acne in Sweden, and so there's a lot of design integrated in everything that we do, and that's also why I'm still here at Deloitte. And so yeah, but in terms of my career, like how I started, I actually had more like studied marketing first, business management, and I got very into marketing, but always went to kind of more specific what I wanted to do. And my first internship was at Ogilvy, as a lot of people might know. So an advertising agency where I work as a digital project manager. And there I worked together with art directors and copywriters. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to become an art director. So I looked up where can I do that. So I went to Miami Ad School in Berlin, where I studied art direction. And that was like kind of my first experience with design, I'd say, where I learned everything about, web concepts to art direction to photography, typography, and there I also did a lot of internships. So I did internships in Hong Kong and in Moscow, in Paris, then I also started working in Germany, where I was an art director. And I think there I made the switch because my thing, why did I change to more UI UX, was like, as an art director, I had to come up with concepts, but I couldn't do the interface design. So there was another company was doing that. So I felt like that's not what I want. I also want to create that thing. And so I already had some conversations with Deloitte Digital. So I moved back to Belgium and I joined Deloitte Digital, where I joined as just more as a visual designer. There was not many designers. I think there was only one designer back then. And there I kind of transitioned into more like, I really felt like I want to do UI design. So I started calling myself UI designer, right? And that's kind of how I transitioned from like a junior to a senior. And now I'm a lead UI designer. And that's kind of how my what my experience is with design, how I got to where I am now. Yeah.
And the skills and learnings you had working in art, as an art director, obviously translated very well to UI design. What were some of the things that you had to learn immediately once you made that shift more into the product design space in the UX design world?
I think indeed. So I think something that still helped me a lot today, and what I feel that some product designers are missing is typography. That's really something that I really love doing, and I'm very passionate about. But also photography, I think, is also something that you can always use in your interface design. But I think it's more the UX side, right? It's more about also patterns, and that's something that you don't really learn in our direction. As definitely if you look at the big companies like Google with material design, or Apple with human interface design. So there are some rules, right? So that you need to get to know as well. So there's some studying to do there. I think that it's also about like, what are the minimum requirements, the minimum margins you need to use in with devices. You can be very creative, but there's some certain rules that you need to follow, definitely with grid systems and stuff. And that's something I really had to kind of study and get into. So yeah, I think these are the things that are very different from more our direction. I think it's almost like math sometimes for me, user interface design, with the pixels. And so yeah, definitely these things.
And so when you made that shift, right, you said, okay, I want to go from art direction into UI design. Obviously you made that move. How did you kind of basically teach yourself? I mean, how did you go to any kind of formal education? Was there online resources? How did you get to kind of that point where you now really moved and kind of excelled in the UI design world?
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing about, there's the tools, but there's then the theory about UI design, right? And I think it's like back in the day, I think my first year, we were still using Photoshop to do UI design. It's a long time ago, but it was just the
I remember
time.
that.
Yeah, the time when
dark times.
Indeed, it was very time consuming. It was a time when Sketch just came out, so I think I was already then looking. I think it was a colleague who told me about Sketch, and I was like looking into that. So there's one thing to get to know the tool, how that works, and become very proficient in the tool, because it makes your work faster. But just knowing the tools doesn't make you a great designer. That's something that we see now as well with Figma. We can be very good at Figma, but it doesn't mean that you're a good designer. So what I actually started doing was like, I think I'd say I had a good design education, but I'm also, I think 50% like self-taught, I would say. And it was really, I think now it's less popular, but like back in the day, I was looking a lot on Dribble and literally copying designs, but like just remaking them. So basically my favorite designs that I saw was not using them for projects, but more like, okay, I love this design, I'm going to remake that in Sketch. And exactly, right. And that's how I started learning about margins, what they're using, what are button sizes, how much they use. And I kind of kept remembering that. And I was constantly using these things. And there's a certain period you get to know your own style, because then you want to do things different, but you're more confident that you know that others have done it like this. So then I think that it's definitely Dribble and remaking these things, recreating these things that definitely have helped me. And I would say Twitter as well, by following really the best designers in the world. I'd say I have a list of designers that I follow, just constantly being up to date with what they're doing. And yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of the art of doing something like 10,000 times, right? You keep practicing, you'll make mistakes, but you'll continue to get better. I think it's that repetition. And I like that you touched upon it, is kind of copying the things that are out there, because every time you're copying, whether it's an existing website or whether it's just somebody else's design on Dribble or whatever it might be, you're always learning something new. And that's something that can always then be applied to your own individual workflow in your design style too. So whether that's the company you're currently working for, the project that you're on, or whatever your kind of individual artistic direction is. Talk to me a little bit about the transition that you made in moving from kind of individual contributor into design manager at Deloitte.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think there's two sides for that, because one thing is that you at the company also almost get a bit forced into certain roles, right? Like with the experience, they want you to take more responsibilities and also start, leading other designers, junior designers. But it's also a natural thing, I'd say, because when you start, I also always had a mentor as well, and that taught me a lot, and I always felt passionate about also sharing my knowledge. And I think that's something that when interns come, you really try to help them as much as possible. And it's then great to see them developing as well, that they can learn from you. So I think it's a natural thing, but also it also felt like I had always a bit like this paradox of like, okay, the moment you actually start being a lead designer and you get a lot of responsibilities, which means you will be responsible for also the tooling, what are you going to use? It takes a lot of time to actually do these things, but also proposal work, making PowerPoints where you want to present to clients and everything, which means you have less and less time to actually design yourself. And it's still your passion, you still want to design yourself. And that's something I had a very hard time, still have a very hard time with that I don't design full time anymore, which I actually really love doing. But it also feels that then when you see other people around you, not only designers, but because I'm in a company with a lot of people in a traditional track that are really just managers, project managers, they become project managers, they become managers, and you also feel like you feel like, yeah, I can actually also do that. I can also manage certain things, and so you naturally go in there and you feel always like maybe I can do that better or not, and so you kind of almost forced to go in there, but it's not something I regret. I just find it very important to keep that balance between the two. I don't want to stop designing. It's something, the moment I need to stop designing, I feel like I'm not at the right place anymore. So, yeah.
Well, I absolutely agree. You talked about mentorship previously. Is the mentorship that you received during your career, and especially the transition, mostly from internal within your organization, or was a lot of that also that you found externally? So whether that's local communities, online, you name it.
Well, I wish I had. So yeah, there's I got a lot of mentors, I'd say, at my internships when I worked. I remember a creative director in Moscow, a Turkish guy. He was. I learned a lot from him, and it's still something I still use in my designs. I keep on remembering that. There's a few people in the world, I think, that have made a huge impact on me, and that I still kind of remember. It's not that we have like a lot of contact anymore, but just certain things that I remember. But definitely internally, there's also we have a creative director where I've learned a lot from, not only from design, but also just about people, people management, people culture, and things like that. So yeah, internally, definitely at Deloitte, it's a bit harder at Deloitte in terms of design, because we don't have so many designers, a very business-oriented environment. But I've also learned a lot on the business perspective, and how to do also project management and stuff. And I think something I also enjoyed and liked. So it's not only about design, I'd say, but I think so. Last year or 2 years ago, I've been on also there's some platforms now where you can do mentorships, and I think Uxcel has actually a partnership with them. And
yeah, I mean, ADP list is probably one of the biggest out there now, and I think they've been doing a super rad job in building up a wonderful community of both mentees and mentors.
Yeah, so I've joined that, and I gave a lot of I had some mentees there that I worked with. But I wish I had that actually a few years ago, and I didn't. Back then, I don't think it existed. So I feel like a bit, it's a pity.
I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people do.
So I think it's a really great thing. Now I'm actually even now thinking to still join it and find someone with like 10 years more experience than me or something. I think I can still learn and keep on learning, and it's definitely about, I think, in terms of career development, right? Like, well, what's the next steps and stuff, and these things. So yeah, I think that's a really great platform to. I wish I had that a few years ago.
Yeah. So you also mentioned before is now obviously, and I think that's natural. I mean, once you make the transition to manager, personally, I don't think you should ever stop designing. There's a kind of a mix to it. But there's no perfect formula at all. But we're trying to discover that. Talk to me about how you kind of balance now your ability to design with now managing a team of junior mid-level designers. How do you do that, and what's the process to it?
Yeah, it's challenging, I'd say. It depends a lot on the project as well. Sometimes you have a few so we work really on project basis, right? So we have like a lot of different projects, but I'm not involved in every project. So sometimes I'm involved in projects where I can design a bit more, but then sometimes I just have like 1 day or 2 days on the whole project where I then do some more quality assurance and check with other designers how they're doing and giving them some tips. And you always feel the urge to design yourself, but that's not always possible. So you try to give them some feedback, and it's mostly in Figma using the comment feature and giving a lot of comments and do some check-ins. So yeah, but I think it's also like for people where I'm not on the project on, so it's also trying to check in with them. They sometimes reach out to me. I try to, it's really individual. Some people reach out a lot to me, but then some people do that less. So you need to check in with them. So it's really, because we're not like this kind of traditional design team. We're like just working on one product altogether, right? It's really like sometimes you just work with half a year with one designer and you're not involved in the other projects, but still kind of expected then from you to also check in with them. So it's, yeah, I think it's with time. Sometimes I actually have a month where I have like almost no projects. And then now I'm like I think on 4 or 5 projects. So that's great because I can design a bit myself now as well, but also work with some other designers then. And we really work together on products. So it's really about, it changes all the time, I would say. I think like how to balance and also with learning. I don't, was that the question as well, but learning?
Yeah, no, you touched upon it very well. Yeah. As far as kind of the tools you guys are using for training your team, so whether that's Coursera to Udacity to LinkedIn Learning to Uxcel as well. What have you found that's been working, not working, whether that's in the past or that's currently? But I think probably most of us would kind of love to know what is kind of your secret sauce to helping improve your team. Yeah,
so I mean, I think the thing at Deloitte as well, we have a thing called Deloitte University, and they have great trainings. It's more like management level. So that's something what I found out in the beginning of my career, that there's not going to be any design trainings here, right? So I will have to find these things myself. And so that's why now we have also a partnership with Udemy, and there are some design trainings there, of course, and that's great. But some of these trainings are really long, and it's something that that's actually why Uxcel came in, and it's something I found myself. I think I found on, I don't remember the first contact, but I think it was something on Twitter I saw. I was like, oh, this looks great, and you start using it, and obviously you want then the other team members to join as well. And really, I think now we're like almost 15 members or something. We started with just one person. So, and because I really believed in that, the reason was that you can literally do 5 minutes a day. So you don't need to spend a lot of time on it. It's really your decision how much time you want to spend on it. And some people have done all courses. Some people are just starting or do like one course a month, and that's all fine. Everybody has its own kind of pace. So we do use Uxcel a lot. And I think it's something, if I look at other designers from the junior to the seniors, I think if I look 2 years ago or something, and I talked with some designers and I asked them, how many trainings did you do at like design trainings? And there were some people who would say, none. And I was like, okay, that's not right. This is it's not only about the Deloitte trainings. You should try to do some trainings or go into conferences and stuff. So we're really trying to work on that now. I think to give everybody at least to recommend at least some design trainings, and it's not only about Uxcel. There's other trainings as well, but also conferences and stuff. So we trying to make now even an overview is something new. We're doing like an overview of all the conferences there are all the trainings that are there. There's some other things like UX Design Institute are really great, and getting really people certified, and always trying to a bit pushing them to actually do these certifications, I think, because we feel like it's very important as an individual, but it's also, the more designers in your team that are certified or have the knowledge, the better your team is, and the more pleasant it is also to work with these designers. So I think it's already I think the last 2-3 years it has improved a lot, but we really had to search a bit ourselves. It's not the company was going to give these. We have really great trainings, and it's about, sometimes we had like a really good training about voice training, for example. It's something that's really, really good. But in terms of design training, you're not going to, in our company, we couldn't find that. So we had to really shape that ourselves. And I think we have really good resources now, I think. Yeah.
Was that basically coming from kind of the top down in the organization, or at least within Belgium itself, or was that really the design team kind of fighting for it and say, hey, we want access to more resources, whether that is, you know, online mentorship, conferences, you name it?
No, it really had to come from our team. I think it's something that didn't really. I think even like if you look at our kind of top management team, there are no designers there, so it has to really come from down, and then just discussing, and people also letting them know what is available. And so we have like a conference where we now put all these conferences and trainings that are available, so everybody has access then to these things. But it had to come from us, and first I of course had to convince a bit, why do we need to Uxcel, you know? And I think there's a lot of metrics there. It's super nice that you can say, look, this is the amount of hours that we already spent on it. So this was the investment, and this is the amount of hours we got from it. So we can really show that it's worth it. It's not just, I think that's what great. A lot of trainings, some people do them, but sometimes they don't even get a certificate for that or something. And it's like, did that person really do that training? Or like, same like watching YouTube videos. Yeah, how do you prove that you actually have done? You watch these, you know, and so it's you need some kind of convincing elements as well for your management, because at the end it's all investments as well.
No, absolutely. I think that's probably, you know, since we release Uxcel teams, and it's going through phases and iterations. Really, what we started at first is just give the team access to our learning content. What's really changed, and I think what's resonated the most to me, and I think this is why we're kicking off these webinars, is effectively coming down to like the skill sets of a design team and individual designers, and how do we identify them? How do we improve them? Because I think with so many people now working remotely, especially with bigger teams, it's hard to necessarily get that one-on-one mentorship to see specifically what areas are lacking and where can we improve them. And so that's kind of one of the biggest thing is how do we kind of identify, provide the right learnings, and then also see kind of the results of the time users are obviously spending that, or the members are actually working on these design skills. One of the things that is obviously really important is we'd send our team out to go learn this, right? Take this course, read this book, etc. How do you then kind of go and reinforce those learnings into the work? Because it's one thing to just say, go ahead and learn about, you know, the grid system. What has been your kind of methodology for then applying that and seeing the the results of those learnings, Driess?
Yeah, that's indeed a very challenging thing, and it's something that's difficult because I think if you're a really, really good designer, everybody wants to work with you, definitely on a project basis. So these people are always full-time on projects. So that means they have the least time to actually do these trainings. And the people who were less on projects, and it's not only about being good, it's sometimes people are getting too expensive to be on the project because all level is a different price as a consultant. They have a bit more time then, so then that's not really fair, right? So you need to find then everybody should have equal opportunities to do this learning, and you can't also expect everybody to do that in their free time. I think lots of people do that. If you're passionate, you might do that. I do that a lot. I just sometimes at the weekend I do a bit of, I don't know, I just love doing that because I see it as an investment, and I think something we already talked about, but like I don't do do these trainings for the company. I do it for myself, and the company can benefit from these things, of course, but it's really an investment in myself. So I will always do these trainings that I feel like that I can use in the future. So a few of these things are how we do that. It's really about, we have some time for that for Deloitte as on the learning budget, but then it's really about coming up with a plan. And we've done that now a couple of times with a few people, but you really need to ask for it and kind of almost sell it, you know. And it's really about finding, if you want to do a big certification, which takes, let's say, 80 hours, it's about having maybe half a day a week to free up then from your project, that every Friday afternoon, the person can work on that certification. But it needs to be planned, because if you're just going to say, yeah, we need to do the certification, we try that. A lot of people then at the end of the year, you ask them, did you do it? No, I didn't have time with the project. So you really need to plan that, and then you really have to talk with the project manager, get approval for that, and have it all written down, and be like, let's put it in the agenda. And so we know that person is in the afternoon, for example, not available. Obviously,
Yeah.
project work comes first, so there can be some changes there, stuff. But the aim is really to get that certification, and I think so. That's something that's for more like these kind of bigger certifications. But like with Uxcel, so you can do literally 5 minutes a day. So there's something that you can easily do in during a break, or like, you know, even you start your morning every 5 minutes. That's a bit how I did it. I think some other ways that really worked well for me is like there's like these the skill graph, which is like 1 hour per skill. I think it's like around 6 or something, if I'm not mistaken. So what I did is just like I just booked it in my agenda, 1 hour a day. Otherwise, it's like 6 hours and it's like a full day, right? So you're like, okay, I just booked some slots in my agenda. It's like, okay, now I'm going to focus on that and do it. And so it's like, I think the key is really planning and come up with a plan for other designers and support them in that and help them with that. That's working pretty well, I'd say now. Yeah.
As far as the plan, I'm sure that probably a lot of managers on this call would love to know is what's kind of the ideal amount of like kind of, or like how would you manage the expectations? How would you go ahead and plan that? So we say on like a quarterly basis, right? That's from the teams and the managers that I talk to. Generally, we work on a quarterly basis. We'll say, okay, it's January. What do we want to accomplish as far as learning goes by, you know, March? What's been something that's been working for you and that you seem to have the most success with?
Yeah, it's tricky, but yeah, we mostly work by fiscal year. So we always put like all goal settings in September, and then the end.
Mm-hmm.
So May, you know, and then we have the talent reviews, and so it's mostly putting that really in your goal settings. But it needs to be, I always say, it needs to be realistic. You know, I think like if you can do like one big certification, which is like 80 hours in a year, I think that's workable, I'd say. And then you can also kind of, you can fill it up with some other things like Uxcel trainings and then more the Deloitte learning as well. We have some mandatory trainings we need to do, we follow as well. And I think, sometimes I think it's also a bit like making the decision of like, you want to do a certification, which is quite costly, or you want to go to conference. It's another type of learning. I think generally, I feel that I'm more interested right now in going to conferences to get inspired rather than doing these certifications, because I already have done a lot of them. And it's not that I can't learn anymore, but I feel like I've learned already a lot. And I feel like the knowledge I have is good enough to work. I just need to get inspired. And that's something I really feel that I need every year. So, but yeah, I think it's something for me, it's like at least one conference a year, or one kind of an important certification, which takes, I think, like around maybe 60, 80 hours.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Well, I can see the conferences, once you've been into your design career, 5, 6+ years, it can be hard to just continue to complete courses or certifications on that. I think the conferences, what they really give is just, they really light a fire under your butt. It's fuel, it's energy. You go there, you either with your team or you're, outside of your team, you're networking, you're meeting new people, and you come back reinvigorated and recharge. We talked a little bit before about the skill graph and assessment, which again, Uxcel, but I'm also really interested in is the self-assessment and knowing how important that is for you and your team throughout your experience in terms of assessing your own skills.
It's quite tricky to measure that yourself, definitely when you look at more like design outputs, I'd say. But I think like there's a few things that are recently, the last years, for example, accessibility is something that's a very hot topic now, and it's getting very important. And something, obviously, as a UI designer, you need to know that, So Uxcel has offered these accessibility trainings as well, but there's many others. So I also did that myself, but at the end of the day, how do you then, because you've done a certification, okay, doesn't mean that you really know it, so you need to do it in practice. So I think it's like then checking your designs with like an accessibility expert and be like, okay, what do you think about it? And that's a bit how you do this kind of self-assessment, I'd say. The same, like I'm quite into the UX writing. So you can do a course, but then you apply it, and then talking with more copywriters, you ask them feedback, and that's how you kind of stay up to date and be sure that you're doing the right things. think other things are like when it comes to software, right? So Figma, I think I'm pretty good at it, but I know we have some people in the team who are also really, really good at it. So it's also like, yeah, you just work with them in the file and then they will give some comments where it's like, but I have a better way of doing that, right? Here you should use variables instead of styles, or this should be component, this shouldn't be component, and so that's also how
and as a manager, this must constantly push you to improve your skills. Is when you see people on your team doing things that you never even knew existed. It's probably a real motivator, right?
That's great, and I think. I mean, that's how you can kind of improve yourself, and I think that's what challenges me as well, to have people in the team who push you as well, that know things better than you. And I know I'm good at certain things, but I know there's other things that I'm not good at, and I know it. But that's why you also have a team that can help you with these things, of course. So yeah, I think that's in terms of self-assessment, I think, but as well the self-assessment features on Uxcel is also a great way of doing that, because you can compare yourself with other designers. And I think sometimes you think like, yeah, am I really good at visual design? You think, but then you can see that you can actually compare yourself. You have a kind of a score, and then you can see what's the average in Europe or worldwide. And then you actually see, okay, it's actually pretty good, because it's the average is the real people. There's like lots of designers on this platform, right? So you can really, that's a great way of also seeing that by numbers. And yeah,
I think it's been one of the most important things for us is how do you measure the impact of your learning, right? We started out just creating courses, and we wanted to create a better way to learn design. But I think what really came back was, how do we know that we're improving? How can I actually test that? And that was kind of one of the biggest challenges that was put before us. And so when we released assessments, it was amazing to see, because it was just the kind of that feedback loop that you get from the system, in which case you're learning, or even before you learn, you benchmark, you see where you currently stand, you go and do some learning, you come back and you take a test. And you can really feel the improvement over a 3-month time or a 6-month time, and that's been incredibly valuable for myself to kind of see that I'm actually making strides. I as a user of Uxcel, I know that I'm really, really weak in certain areas, and so it's been really cool to, when a new assessment is released, for example, to go ahead, see how I did. Oftentimes it's tragic. But then I go and then I improve, and I can then see that in several months how much of gains I've made, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think I want to say something, because this is about more the self-assessment, but it's also what is great as well, that you can kind of send assessments to other designers, and it's something that we recently used with like an internal kind of transfer, someone who wanted to join our design team, but it was like, we have conversations with like people who want to join our team. It's like they show a portfolio, but what I found out is that you actually never really know if that person made the design or not. It could be that the person was in a team, and you always ask, but you never really know what was the exact role. Did that person design everything, or is that things that were found on the internet with UI kits and stuff? So it's very hard to judge. And I think with these assessment is something that you can't really cheat with that, because it's even like it records your with the camera and everything, and you really, it really shows that person knows something about design or not. And I think it's something that's also really great to do these kind of little tests to see
with the screen assessments.
Yes, and it's something that we did recently, and we had quite good experience with as well. So it's not only about the portfolio, but it's about it's more than that, to show, does that person have design knowledge, because it's also about theory, right? And the color theory and stuff. You need to know that, not just choosing nice colors, but like, why do you choose these colors? And yeah,
absolutely. So I have a question that I would love to hear your answer on. This one is, and I think this is not only just from being a product manager and a founder of Uxcel, but I think everybody probably knows this, and because this is one of the hardest things too, as a manager or as an individual. How do you continuously kind of motivate your team to learn? There's so many distractions. There's so many things with their projects, our normal workload, families, friends, etc. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's also it's very challenging as well. It really depends also on the motivation of people. And I realize we're not the same. Some people are more motivated, more passionate about others, and I'm someone who's very passionate, and you can't expect that from everyone. So, but I try to to tell them like, look, this learning is not something I want you to do for me or for the design team or for the companies. Like, use it as it's an investment from you, you know, it's an investment in yourself, you know. And I said it already in the beginning. It's like, okay, you're now at Deloitte, but one day you might not be at Deloitte anymore, right? You might become a freelance designer, but like, what you're going to take with you is not only the projects, and sometimes the projects you work on are confidential projects. So these are things you already can't show in your portfolio. So also invest in yourself by having some certifications at least, have learning and that you can use for your own profile, you know. So also you have learning budget, use it as well. That's also the benefit, I think, working in a company as a freelance. You will have to pay yourself, and you might not do that because you have other bills to pay, and you know. So it's something that I try to kind of bring that message, but also like, don't just follow a training because someone else is saying you to follow training. You're not going to, if someone wants you to do like, you know, you have someone in the design team and you want that person to become really good at 3D design. So, but if you're not interested in that, I feel like you shouldn't do it. You're not going to become good at it if you're not passionate about it, you know. So do something you really want to do yourself, and at the end, we will benefit from it, you know, the company will benefit from it. And so it's about like, yeah, this is a way of like try to kind of bring that message, motivate people. But I think that the Uxcel thing as well, it's because you have this kind of gamification element there as well with the rankings and stuff, and yeah, it can feel like sometimes a bit as a competition, of course, but at the end it's also about looking what your other peers are doing and what they're, and hopefully others designers get inspired by that as well. It's like, okay, and then it's about like, how do you manage to fit that in your work schedule as well, of course. And then it's about, yeah, just talking about it and showing and trying to I think in the last year we've done way more certification than we've done in the previous 4 or 5 years, you know. So I think it's definitely an improvement, but it can always be better, of course. But I feel quite passionate about that topic to help others develop, because I've also been through that, and I feel like what I've learned is something that the people who are now at the level where I was 3 years ago, I know what I did wrong and right. So I try to also to tell them, look, I think you should more invest in that. And sometimes these people don't see that at that time, but I think, believe me, you will feel that in a few years. And it's the same with me when I talk with others with more people older than me with more experience. They sometimes think I'm a bit naive, and then in a few years I actually get there, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, you know. So I try to bring over that message as well.
Do you feel like the competition, the gamification, whether that's new Uxcel or any other platform, has really helped with your team? Do you see that there's any kind of internal competition where at a friendly level, hopefully, has kind of helped inspire or motivate people to learn?
I think for some, yes. For others, might see it a bit as if you really don't find the time, it might feel a bit too competitive, and understandable. Some people are competitors, some are not. But for me personally, it has helped, because I had like kind of a little game with another designer who was like constantly jumping over me. But that was more about, that's not because you're a better designer, because it's about it's like experience points, right? It's just how much are you doing. So it's not about who's a better designer. It's more like who has done more learning, and it works for, I think, for a lot of people who want to jump over these things. And it's also like you have this kind of worldwide ranking or Belgium ranking, and like I want to be like the number one in Belgium, so I constantly try to improve there. And it's about, at the moment I think we were like with 5 people from our team in the top 10 or something in Belgium, or 4, and it was kind of great to see. And I wanted like everybody to join that, and it's something. But yeah, for some people it might not really work. It is something that some people find it not so important. But again, it's not about who's the best designer, or you know, it's that's definitely not. I know Uxcel has also this ranking of like the top designers by the scores and stuff, but we don't really use that. So also the graph that we have, it's not something that we share internally of like to compare yourself with others. That's definitely not the case. I mean, we
Absolutely.
yeah.
And And as far as like the learnings and the investment that you have been making in your team, Deloitte has been making in your team, do you feel like that's helped you retain members, like keep them interested in staying in within Deloitte, or have you found that has no impact at all?
No, I don't know if that's it's not the only reason why people stay, of course, at a company or want to leave or join. But I think it's just important that there's a company that you invest in your people, that you have something to look forward to. I think also that's not only about the project, because then it could feel like, we just want to make money out of us, and no, it's about, yes, you of course that's the key of it. You will have to do the project work, but at the end there's a learning thing as well, and it's about ideally it needs to invest in you as well. And I think there is budget for that, and it's just, I think my role is a little bit to kind of facilitate a bit more for designers, because we have a learning team, but again, they're not focused on designers. So with some other lead designers, we try to find it's really a team effort, right? Like, hey, let's find all the conferences that we can find, all the trainings, and recommend it to each other, and now we're trying to follow that up to see that at least for next year, everybody has at least something, at least is going to a conference, and it's about sharing the knowledge then as well, or at least is doing one training. So I think it's something, if Deloitte would say, we're not going to invest in you anymore, I think, yes, people would leave, I think, so it's, I think it definitely helps. It definitely helps me. I'm very, very happy when I can go to a conference, honestly. And I feel like I really want to then represent Deloitte, and then that's also a bit what expected then from you as well, to be, you're there in the name of your company, right? So you're not there as just an individual. So,
I think that it's a testament also how long you've been with them as well, to show that the investment that they made in you in terms of helping you advance in your career is it's key. Question: what would be like kind of the best piece of advice you can give to any design manager? We're kind of running out of time now. We want to go. You actually have a lot of questions, and so that's awesome. But what's the one piece of advice you can give to a design manager to help them be successful in their role?
I think, maybe a couple, but I think most important is lead by example. It's I find it so important to, if you're a UI lead, UX lead, that you actually know how to design, that you also that you stay up to date with. Now it's Figma, but maybe in 1-2 years, we don't talk about Figma anymore. It will be all Webflow, or it will be Framer. I mean, look what happened with Sketch and the transition to Figma. I was already a lead when we made that transition. I could have said, I don't have time for this. And sometimes it was like that. But I spent time in my free time to learn Figma, because I wanted to become also really good at Figma, because I think you need to lead by example and show that you also know these things, that you can give tips and tricks to the more senior junior designers. I think that's quite key for me, to stay up to date with the latest industry trends as well, that you don't become someone who is just there with experience, and you just, in a few years, you don't know anything anymore, because it's such a rapid changing world, the design world, and definitely with the tools and new styles as well. So you need to stay up to date. I think that's really key, as experienced as you are. And that's actually something that when I had a lot of design managers, creative directors in the past as well at internships, and I had people, art directors, who didn't know, even back then, knew how to open Photoshop. For me, that was something I took that person less serious, I would say. But then I had also the creative directors who were really good designers as well, and that was something I looked up to. It's, for me personally, something very important, and I want to be that guy as well, to stay up to date and know what I'm talking about, and not just saying you need to do it like this, and be like, but I want to show that as well, that I can do it. So it's something it's key for me to, and it's something challenging, but it's very, very important to me. So I think that would be my number one advice, to stay up to. Steve Jobs said that, stay hungry, right? So it's a bit related to that, I would say.
Awesome. Okay, that's awesome advice. I mean, I couldn't agree more. We're going to jump into some questions. I'll try to go rapid fire. I'll get through as many of these as you can. I'm not sure the protocol, if I'm allowed to say the first name of who's asking the questions. So maybe Lazar, you can say, nod your head, yes or no. But so the first one is coming off is junior designer is Helena, who's looking, who's studied both UX and UI, but is trying to get much more into UI, specifically design systems. What tips would you give?
Well, specifically for design system, yeah, it's a big part of definitely digital product design now, right? So it's, I think, looking at the best design systems that are available, like and actually, like I said in the beginning, with Dribbble, you copy what they're making. I think there's a really great design systems out there. I think there's a thing called Untitled UI. It's something that's really great. And it's about just look at how they make it and remake it. You know, make your own design system. But like, it's not about the style, how it looks, but about how do they name these properties? How do they group these things? How do they actually divide it by page? And I think it's like, if you can remake something like this, you will actually learn a lot. But also looking at other design systems like the Atlassian design system is one that looks really good. I think Spotify has design systems. Like, look at these big tech companies, what design systems they have, and just remake these things yourself and then apply it to a project. That's how I did as well. First time I never had design system training. You know, I never went to school to have design system. It didn't even exist back then. Definitely not by name. So that's how you learn it, by using other design systems and make then one day a design system yourself, which I've done as well with other designers on projects. And then you always look at how others do it and you get inspired from that. Yeah.
Okay. Also +1 for Untitled UI, great system. Just really quickly, what are the tools you work with on a daily basis, whether UX, UI, or product design?
It's really reduced, because back in the day it was really abstract and Sketch and InVision, and now it's all like in Figma. So it's mostly Figma, and also Notion more for project management, I say. Like, we really try to put all the screens in on a Kanban and like to see where's the work, but it's more from to work with other designers to know where you are, also visibility to other project managers. I think, and yeah, from time to time, I use a lot of Lightroom for my photography that I'm doing. Sometimes a little bit Illustrator, but I also, even icons, I start making them now in Figma as well. So it's like, Figma is really at the moment the tool that I'm using, and the other things are just like, yeah, just sometimes if you want to do some 3D things, it's like I try out a bit Spline, but it's definitely not on a daily basis.
Okay, I just saw a really great question that I want to. Okay, it just bounced around a little bit on this. Okay, so this is a question I really love. How do you train business skills for a designer?
Oh, well, I think it's something Deloitte we get automatically. So I can't really say how to train it yourself, I'd say, but I think that's one of the reasons I'm Deloitte, because I'm very interested in business. I think it's like by joining not just a design agency, but like join a real like a company who's doing also a lot of business. Like join a bank, for example, and join the design team there, because you will be required to actually know the business, how it works, because there's so many rules. I worked a lot for banks as well, that you need to know financial things, how it works, how does portfolio management work and things. And so I learned a lot on these things as well. So yeah, I think it's not just join a design agency, but like, if you're really interested in business, you can go work in the business sector, and there's always design teams there, internal design teams there.
I'll add too is, I mean, sometimes the lines can get crossed, but work closely also with product management. I found that can be a great way to build your business skills too as a designer. This is a great question for you. Do you mind suggesting some good resources for grids?
So actually, I have something in the Figma community. So it's something I push there. It's called 4-point grid. I think if you search by that or by my name, you might find it. So I have like a 4-point grid there that I have some one for desktop, tablet, and mobile. I also wrote an article about it on Medium, so it's something that you can also look into. And in that article, there's some resources as well that I use, because there's I forgot the name, but someone who wrote back in the day, a long time ago, about 8-point grid. So I think that that's really good resources. And I think also looking at, again, design systems like material design, they explain their grid system, human interfaces design, and look at it. They have always a section about grid systems. So yeah.
Can you share, so you talked about this a few times now with conferences, and I'm glad this user asked this question, some of the best that you've been to or that you would absolutely recommend for your team?
Conferences or
best conferences, correct.
I think there are 3 of them that are really, really good for me. It's OFF in Barcelona, where I recently went. I went 2 times now. Awards in Amsterdam, but there's also in the United States, there's also, I think, in Mexico as well, in the United States. They are all over the world. So Awards is like this website where all the best websites get rated. It's more into product design and UI design, UX design, development. Awards is more about creativity, I'd say. And then you also have Design Matters, that's in Copenhagen. It's a good mix of both, I'd say. So these 3 are I think the best ones I've been to. I've been to quite a few. Yeah.
Okay. As a manager, how do you make sure to involve junior designers in projects that generally require more experience?
Oh, we're quite a require because of the price. So we always there will always be junior designer there. I mean, yeah. So every project requires expertise, but I think it's you go there together, right? So it's just like I will be then me or some other senior designer or lead designer will be on the project, and it'll more be like quality assurance. So you work like 1 day a week with that person, or you spend 1 hour, 2 hours a week with a more junior designer. And yeah, you just need to follow up closely. But I think at Deloitte, the junior designers have a lot of opportunities to be on projects actually, because they're less expensive, so they also can work more time on these projects. So yeah, I think Deloitte is definitely a good company for that as a junior designer if you want to have work.
Expanding upon that, because there's actually a question that asks that specific thing. What are some insights? What would you say to those listening right now on how you could join Deloitte as a junior designer? Any tips, guidance, anything that could help?
I think to show that you're really interested in business as well. So not just a designer, but that you understand why you're designing, and it's not just about looking at making it look nice, but like you're really interested in becoming a good. I think it's about more than just design, that you really want to. You have also, you're interested in project management and these things, and you can work in an agile way and all these things. These are words I didn't even know before I joined Deloitte, So I think it's about like really showing your, they'll say you have maybe an industry expertise. That's also something, or you're really interested in a certain sector. So for me, that's the e-commerce sector and also financial sector. So it's very important for Deloitte as well, the different sectors, because you have different teams that you can, that you know a lot about a certain sector. So yeah, I think that's a good tip that will definitely convince recruiters.
Working as a lead UI designer, how closely do you work with the UX side of things on a day-to-day basis?
Oh yeah, very close. I think. I mean, sometimes I'm just on a project my own and I just do UX, UI design. I do both things, But like now on the project I'm actually with another lead UX designer, is more visual, like a mediocre designer, and then a junior UX designer. So actually a team of like 4, 2 more specific to UI and more specifically to UX. So it's really on a daily basis. And I think it's sometimes these small projects where it's just like 1 week or 2 weeks. We usually don't put a UX and a UI designer separately. It's just like one designer then that does the both. And most of our UI designers are also pretty good at UX design. It's like I said in the beginning, it's just a more focus Well, I feel sometimes we have lots of UX designers who are not really good visually, but then they have other skills. They're really good at accessibility or research, and so yeah, it's more like a focus, and they're so yeah.
Okay. Can you ask, skill development is often, I think we're the first people to recognize this is essential for professional growth. Any tips for how to balance basically professional skill development with our workload?
I think I think it's about planning it. I think I said it in the beginning as well, to really plan it in your week. Like, even if you have 1 hour a week like this, and you put in your agenda, like, this is what I see for myself, that this is the time I will spend on learning, and give yourself a challenge. Like I said in the beginning, if it's like, want to do things on Dribble that you see, you want to remake that, or things on Twitter if you've seen, that could be a challenge. Like, I'm going to recreate that screen. So I think it's about setting yourself some goals there as well. I think it can be so overwhelming to be like, I need to do this certification, it will take me 80 hours. If you don't plan it in your agenda, you will not get there. You will not be able to do that in 1 day or 2 days, and even in a week. So I think it's really key to plan it. And also, if you're really passionate about it and this is really what you want to do it in your free time as well, I would say. It will definitely make you a better designer, and I think it will make you faster in your work as well. So you have some more free time as well.
I'm looking at this right now, Driess. There's so many great questions here. I think we still have like 36. We have 1 minute left. By the way, Lazar, who's behind the scenes, we're definitely going to do another session in the future where we'll do a lot more Q&A, because this is really powerful stuff here. Last question while we have a minute remaining. Driess, what advice would you give to your younger self if you could?
Ooh. Good question. I don't know. Listen more to. It's a really good question, and then we think about it, and more from a design perspective. It's very challenging.
Let's keep it in the design kind of professional.
Yeah.
I think that probably makes the most sense.
But I think I said a bit in the beginning. Find really more mentors, like people with more experience than you, what you're doing. Because I felt like when I joined Deloitte, it was really the beginning, and in the beginning of my career, I was really alone, and you feel like you're the best designer in the company because you're the only designer, and that's not correct. You need to learn from others, and that's something I should have pushed more, I think, and or searched myself for that, and I just let it kind of happen, and that's why I had to do a lot of self-education. But I wish I had done that from the beginning. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Driess, thank you so much. I mean, it's been an absolute honor to have you here, participate in this kind of first iteration of a Uxcel webinar. Like I said, the first of many to come. I think the fact that you have 36 and we've answered 10, so that's a significant amount of questions, means that people are really interested in what you have to say, and I hope that we can do this again. For everybody who did attend, thank you so much for your time. I had a blast. I'm really, really happy that we were able to do this, and I'm looking forward to doing it again. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful day, evening, or morning, and thank you again. It means a lot.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for joining, listening to me. Hope it was interesting.
Thank you, everyone.